My ex-wife walked out on me and our two little ones in search of what she called real love. Then had the nerve to ask me to financially support the new family she built without me. That's when I knew I had to set boundaries they wouldn't soon forget. Back in 2017, things between Melissa and me fell apart shortly after our twins were born. We hadn't even been together that long, maybe a year, when she found out she was pregnant. We both kind of panicked. Suddenly we were saying things like, okay, maybe we should try to make this work for the kids. You know how people believe that a baby can magically fix a relationship? That was us. But to be honest, we were never exactly a perfect match. Sure, we had a few good moments, but there was no deep, lasting connection. Still, once she was pregnant, I thought maybe we could pull through and build something stable for the twins. Truth is, we were more oil and water than partners, but we gave it a real shot for the sake of our kids. For a while, things were okay. We had our disagreements like any couple, but nothing dramatic. We even managed to co-parent fairly well, no screaming matches, no chaos. Then she met someone else, a guy who, in her words, offered the kind of future she really wanted. I understood, honestly. She was looking for something I couldn't give her. She didn't hide it, and eventually we both agreed that going our separate ways was for the best. It wasn't heartbreaking. We were never built on a solid foundation to begin with. We split peacefully, all things considered, and quickly found a rhythm with shared custody. Things rolled along, not perfectly, but as smoothly as co-parenting across two homes can get. We had equal custody, kept our conversations focused on the twins, and worked to make sure they never felt caught in the middle. Neither of us paid child support since everything was split 50-50ths. 2 years after the breakup, Melissa met her current husband. Not the rebound guy she dated right after me, someone new. And that's when the dynamics started to shift. Her new husband had a daughter around the same age as our twins. When she told me they were getting serious, I supported it. I didn't mind another father figure being around if it helped keep things stable. But then Melissa started nudging the idea that we should treat her stepdaughter like one of our own. At first, it sounded innocent. Wouldn't it be nice if we all did things together, like one big family? I didn't read too much into it. I figured she was just trying to blend the households. I respected that. But things got strange when she started expecting me to treat her stepdaughter the same way I treat my twins. Now, to be clear, I have no issue with her stepdaughter, Sophie. She's a good kid who just happened to get caught in the middle of this. My frustration wasn't with her, it was with the assumption that because I'm the twins' dad, I should also step up as a father figure to someone else's child. I told Melissa I understood the desire to create unity, but I wasn't comfortable being expected to play dad to a child I didn't bring into this world. I was already doing everything I could for my own kids, and that was enough. But she kept pushing. Little by little, the expectations crept in. And co-parenting, already a juggling act, got messy. Things crossed a line when she started assuming I'd babysit Sophie whenever I had the twins. If I had a weekend planned with just my kids, she'd call and ask if Sophie could come too. Once in a while? I didn't mind helping. But it quickly went from occasional favor to standing expectation. And honestly, that didn't sit right with me. I hadn't signed up to be a bonus parent, and I didn't think it was fair, not to me and not to my kids. Eventually, I started noticing that any time I tried to do something special for my twins, it turned into a bigger discussion about including Sophie. It got to the point where I couldn't enjoy one-on-one time with my own children without someone pointing out how unfair it was. It hit a new level when Melissa flipped out over a gift I gave Sophie that didn't cost as much as what I got the twins. That's when I drew the line. I told her directly, my focus is on my children. My time, energy, and resources go to them. Period. She didn't take it well. Said I was being selfish, that I wasn't supporting her whole family. But I reminded her, I never signed up for that family. I care deeply about our twins and I want them to feel loved and supported, but I won't stretch myself thin for kids I have no obligation to. She didn't like it, but we kept things civil. Since then, though, it's been more parallel parenting than co-parenting, each of us handling our own time with the kids separately. We don't coordinate much anymore. We don't blend plans or do joint events. It's cleaner this way. It lets me focus on my children without being weighed down by someone else's expectations. But every so often, Melissa still circles back, acting like I should feel guilty for not stepping in to raise every child under her roof. As time went on, things at Melissa's place got more and more complicated. She and her husband had a child together, and at some point, they also took in his nephew. So now under her roof, there's our twins Aiden and Lily, her stepdaughter Sophie, the husband's nephew Caleb, and their baby girl Emma. It's like a mini commune over there. Melissa does her best to present the image of one big, happy, blended family. And that's her choice. But I've been clear from day one, my responsibility starts and ends with Aiden and Lily. That's the line I've drawn and I've stuck to it. Still, it's messy. Just when I think we've found some rhythm, something new shifts the balance again. I've done my best to keep my boundaries firm, and I genuinely don't think it's unreasonable to focus my energy on the kids I actually fathered. Respecting her parenting choices is one thing. She wants a large blended household, fine. But it crosses the line when she starts expecting me to play a role in raising every child under that roof. As their household grew, holding the line became harder. In the beginning, we had a decent balance. I stayed in my lane, showed up for my twins, and didn't get pulled into the whirlwind of her growing family. But over time, her expectations crept up. First Sophie, then Caleb, then Emma. Every few months, there was some new ask involving someone I had no obligation to. It felt like they kept adding more to their life and more to my plate without ever asking if I agreed to carry the weight. And then came the school trip. That one pushed everything over the edge. The kids all attend Willow Creek Elementary, a small, community-based school that uses a mixed-age classroom model. Coincidentally, Aiden, Lily, Sophie, and Caleb are all in the same class. That part didn't bother me. If it works for the school and the kids are doing well, great. What I didn't expect was how it would turn into a full-blown argument over who I was expected to pay for. The trip was a big one, not some quick walk to a park, but a day-long outing to Discovery Point Museum full of hands-on exhibits, science workshops, and interactive labs. It wasn't cheap, but the twins were thrilled about it, and honestly, it sounded like something they'd remember forever. I had the means, so I paid for them without hesitation. I figured Melissa would be glad they had such a cool opportunity. Nope. The second I mentioned it, she gave me this look like she was bracing herself and said it's not fair if the other kids can't go too. At first, I honestly thought she was joking. No way did she expect me to cover 4 kids. But she was serious. She said it wouldn't be right if Aiden and Lily experienced something special while the others stayed behind, that it would create a divide. I stayed calm and told her directly I paid for my kids because they're my responsibility. I even suggested she and her husband find a way, maybe set some money aside or look into fundraising options. But instead of figuring something out, she went full guilt trip. Said I needed to consider how the other kids would feel watching mine go off on this amazing trip while they stayed behind. Apparently, if they couldn't all go, the entire family dynamic would fall apart. Then her husband Ryan jumped in. Out of nowhere, he accused me of playing favorites and creating tension. I'm all for being fair, but let's be real, there's a limit. His stepdaughter and his nephew are not my kids. I'm not an ATM. So I looked him straight in the eye and said, why exactly is it my job to bankroll all the kids in your house? He just stared at me like I'd said something outrageous. Then he launched into a speech about how all the kids are siblings now, and by treating them differently, I was ruining the family bond. Unity, fairness, blah blah blah. And listen, I get it, no kid wants to feel left out. But at some point, you've got to recognize reality. I'm not their dad. Melissa and Ryan chose to build that family. Those weren't my choices, and I shouldn't be expected to foot the bill for them. What really got to me was how quickly I became the villain. They said if the kids' relationship suffered, if resentment built up, it would be my fault. Seriously? I was just trying to do something memorable for my children. Suddenly, I'm heartless for not subsidizing a whole household? I looked at Ryan and said, this trip was something special I planned for my twins. I didn't ask you to pay for it, don't expect me to pay for your family. And really, how's that unfair? But Melissa wouldn't let it go. She insisted that if Aiden and Lily went while the others stayed behind, it would send the wrong message. That I should care how that made the others feel. Ryan pulled the family unity card again and claimed that if division formed among the kids, it would fall on me. That's when I hit my limit. This wasn't about the kids. This was about them trying to make their financial issues my responsibility. And let's be honest, they're not broke. They both have decent jobs. If this trip mattered so much, they could have figured it out. I'm not stretching my budget to cover what they don't want to plan for. We just kept going in circles. Fairness. Unity. Togetherness. But I stayed firm. I told them, it's not my fault you can't send the other kids. I won't feel guilty for putting my twins first. And I'm definitely not paying for kids I didn't bring into this world. That shut it down for the moment. But from the look on Melissa's face, I knew it wasn't the end of it. I walked away frustrated and honestly stunned. No matter how clearly I explained my position, they just didn't get it. Somehow, being a present and committed father to my own children had made me the bad guy in their story. And man, that's exhausting. All I really wanted was to do something special for my twins, just for them. But somehow it spiraled into this circus of fairness and family unity. It's like I can't make a single decision for my own kids without it turning into a drawn-out debate. I was just trying to give them a fun, memorable experience, not start World War III. But apparently that was too much to ask. After the blow-up over the school trip, I figured that would be the end of it, that I'd made myself clear. I wasn't paying for every child under Melissa's roof. I thought, maybe naively, that they'd drop it and move on. I was wrong. A few days later, Melissa messaged me asking to meet. Right away, I knew it wasn't going to be a casual catch-up. I figured it'd be better to just hash it out face-to-face than go back and forth over text. So we met at a little place halfway between our houses, the Rusty Spoon Diner. The second she walked in, I could tell she came prepared. That expression, tight smile, rehearsed confidence, said everything. She sat down and dove in without even ordering coffee. "I don't think you're fully understanding what's going on here," she said. In my head, I thought, no, I understand perfectly. I'm paying for my kids. That's it. But I kept my mouth shut and let her talk. She launched into this long monologue about the bigger picture. According to her, this wasn't just about one school trip, it was about setting a precedent for how we'd handle similar situations in the future. She talked about alignment, long-term planning, and treating all the kids equally. As if I'd just been appointed to some family board of directors. She said there would be more trips, more events, maybe even family vacations, and we needed a unified approach. I sat there thinking, wait, is she actually expecting me to start funding vacations for her entire household? But I stayed neutral, not giving her any reaction. No point in pouring gas on the fire. Then she circled back to her favorite argument, fairness. Your kids get to do things the others don't. That's not right. It's going to cause resentment. She said the other kids would feel excluded, like they weren't part of the family, and that over time it could damage their bond with Aiden and Lily. I listened, but all I could think was, these kids already come from different families, with different parents, different lives. How's this suddenly my mess to fix? When she finished, I responded calmly. Look, I said, I get that you want everything in your house to feel equal. But the reality is, those other kids aren't my responsibility. We've both been clear for a while now, we parent separately. You handle your household, I handle mine. That's what's been working. Then she dropped the bomb. If you truly cared about the kids' well-being, she said, locking eyes with me, you'd be willing to support the whole family, not just your own. I almost laughed out loud. Since when does being a good dad mean signing up to parent every other kid in your ex's house? I could feel my patience slipping. I do care about my kids, I told her. That's why I go out of my way to give them memories and opportunities. But I'm not going to be guilted into taking care of children that aren't mine. That hit a nerve. She got defensive fast, accusing me of being selfish, short-sighted, and blind to how this would affect the kids' relationships down the line. So I pushed back. How is it selfish to take care of the kids I actually fathered? I said, you chose to build a bigger family. That was your decision, not mine. I didn't sign up for that. And right on cue, as if it was planned, her husband Ryan showed up. He didn't even acknowledge me at first. Just walked over, sat down next to her, and jumped in like some self-appointed mediator. Jake, I don't think you're being fair, he started. We're trying to build something here, a real family, and your actions are putting up walls. I stared at him, wondering if he really expected me to buy into this come-by-a fantasy, especially when it involved my bank account. So I told him straight, Ryan, I'm here for my kids. That's the deal. I'm not going to pretend your kids are mine when the bill comes. He didn't flinch. Instead, he fired back, well, if the kids end up resenting each other, that's on you. You're the one driving a wedge between them. And that lit the fuse. I looked him straight in the eye and said, no, you are making this harder by trying to force your responsibilities onto me. I'm not the one blurring the lines here. I'm just showing up for my kids, that's it. I didn't care if I came off cold at that point. I was tired of being made out to be the villain just because I had boundaries. Melissa jumped back in, insisting that if any resentment grew between the kids, it would be because I didn't care enough to support their so-called family vision. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Melissa, I said, if that's how you see it, then maybe it's time you and your husband come up with a plan that works for your family. But don't put it on me. By then, people at the Rusty Spoon Diner were starting to glance over. I didn't care. I was done with being painted as the problem in a situation I didn't create. All I ever wanted was to do something nice for my twins. Just something fun, just for them. But somehow it turned into a full-blown argument about what I supposedly owe to Melissa's entire household. Like the moment they decided to blend families, I was automatically expected to finance every new addition. I stood up in that diner and said, look, I've said what I needed to say. My focus is on my twins. That's not changing, not today, not ever. If they want everything in their house to feel equal, maybe it's time they start looking at their own choices instead of pointing fingers at me. I was tired of being cast as the villain in a story I didn't write. So I walked out. Frustrated, yeah, but also relieved. It was clear that no matter how calmly or clearly I explained myself, they weren't going to hear it. And as I left, I could feel them staring at me like they expected me to turn back and cave. But I was done. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. That they'd take the hint and stop pushing. But I should have known better. Things didn't cool down, they escalated. A few days later, the messages started coming in, this time from her family. First, it was her sister, Lauren. She usually stays out of the drama and plays neutral. But now she was sending me long texts about how important it is for the kids to feel like one united family. She dropped lines like, if you really cared about your kids' happiness, you'd do this for them. Basically implying that not paying for Melissa's stepkids meant I was failing my own. At first, I ignored it. Figured it would pass. But the messages kept coming and they didn't stay polite. The tone shifted fast from gentle suggestions to full-blown accusations. Suddenly, I was being called selfish, cold, short-sighted. I was accused of tearing their blended home apart just because I wouldn't spend my money on kids I had no connection to. And it didn't stop with Lauren. Next was Diane, Melissa's mom. I hadn't heard from her in ages, so when I saw her name pop up, I thought maybe she just wanted to check in about the twins. Nope. She launched right in, lecturing me about how this all could have been avoided if I just stepped up and paid for everyone. She told me to rethink what it means to be part of a family and that things would be smoother if I supported all the kids, not just my own. My patience was wearing thin. I stayed respectful and said, look, those kids aren't my responsibility. I'm doing right by my twins, that's what I committed to, and I'm not going to apologize for that. But she wouldn't drop it. She kept repeating that a good man supports the whole family. Like repeating it would make it true or shame me into giving in. I told her I'm not going to feel guilty for setting healthy boundaries. That doesn't make me a bad father. It makes me focused. She kept circling the same points, guilt, duty, the kids suffering if I didn't fall in line. Eventually, I had to end the call. I told her we weren't going to agree and hung up as politely as I could. But the pressure didn't stop. It felt like Melissa's entire extended family jumped on the guilt train. Her brother Mark, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year, commented on one of my posts about fatherhood. Just a simple post with the twins, and he writes, "Real dads support the whole family no matter what." Like it wasn't obvious who that was aimed at. I didn't take the bait. I deleted the comment and moved on. But yeah, it got under my skin. I'm out here doing my best for my kids and somehow I'm still being made out to be the bad guy. Then came the cherry on top. I was dropping the twins off at Melissa's house on Elm Street, and as I was heading back to my car, her husband, Ryan, walks up out of nowhere. No greeting. No small talk. Just, we need to talk about this. I paused, thinking maybe, just maybe, he wanted to clear the air. Nope. He went straight back into the script. Said my refusal to pay for the other kids was driving a wedge between the siblings and that I needed to be more thoughtful about the family dynamic. I told him flat out, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm taking care of my kids and they're doing just fine. But he wasn't hearing it. He said the whole family thought I was being unfair and that soon enough, the kids would notice the difference and start resenting each other. It felt like he was placing the emotional health of the entire household on my shoulders. Like I was the one ruining their ideal family setup. I looked him dead in the eye and said, your family's opinion doesn't define my responsibility. I'm not their dad. I'm here for my twins and that's not going to change. And after that I had nothing left to say. No matter how reasonable I tried to be, it was clear they'd already decided I was the bad guy. That night I sat alone and tried to make sense of it. How did it come to this? How did taking care of my own kids, something I take pride in, somehow become an attack on their family vision? I vented to a couple close friends. They were stunned. One of them even joked, if they're so worried about the other kids missing out, maybe they should have pitched in for the trip. I laughed, but honestly, it stung. The texts, the calls, the pressure from people I barely even speak to, it was all too much. At that point, I wasn't just frustrated. I was over it. It really started to feel like they'd built this fantasy world where I somehow owed them, like I had some unspoken obligation to support their entire blended family. And they weren't going to let it go until I gave in. By the end of that week, I finally accepted what I probably should have known from the start. They didn't want understanding, they wanted compliance. But I wasn't going to let them wear me down. My kids are my responsibility. That's the promise I made. And no amount of pressure, guilt, or emotional blackmail from Melissa's side of the family was going to change that. And the wildest part? This whole storm started because I wanted to send my twins on a school trip. That's it. Just one trip. Somehow, it spiraled into this family-wide debate about who was doing enough and who was holding the blended household together. Well, they might not like my answer, but I know where I stand. After a full week of relentless texts, unsolicited advice from in-laws I never speak to, and a chorus of people trying to guilt me into doing more than I ever agreed to, I made a final decision. It was time to draw a line, clearly, firmly, and without wiggle room. Because no matter how many times I explained my position, they just wouldn't listen. They were locked into this idea of one big happy family, and I was the villain simply because I refused to bankroll it. So first, I sat down with my twins. I wanted to make sure they were still excited about the trip, that they didn't feel weird or guilty because of all the adult drama swirling around. I kept it light. I said, hey, I'm really looking forward to this trip for you guys. It's something special, just for the two of you. I didn't drag them into the mess. I just wanted them to feel good about it, to know it was okay to enjoy something that was just for them. They both looked relieved. Kids always pick up on tension no matter how hard you try to shield them. But that moment, seeing their smiles come back, was a huge weight off my chest. After that, I knew it was time to shut the door on the nonsense once and for all. No more gray areas. No more, maybe next time. Just clarity. So I called Melissa. Kept my voice steady, stayed calm. I didn't want it to turn into another drawn-out debate. I said, Melissa, here's where I stand. I'm here to support our twins. I'm committed to giving them great experiences and taking care of what they need, but that doesn't extend to the other kids in your home. I respect your choices and I wish your family well, but financially, my responsibility ends with my children. Of course, she didn't take it lightly. She went right back into the usual, talking about how the other kids would feel, how it might create tension, how unfair it was for siblings to live such different lives. I let her speak for a bit, but once it started turning into another guilt trip, I cut in. Look, I said, I understand what you're trying to do, but I've made my decision. I'm not covering costs for any child that isn't mine. If you and Ryan want to work something out for your household, that's on you. But stop putting it on me. She was quiet for a moment. I could tell she was fuming, probably holding back one last argument. Eventually, she said, fine. I guess you've made your choice. The tone was cold, meant to sting. But honestly, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. After that, it all went quiet. No more texts from Lauren. No snide comments from Mark. Just silence. And it was the kind of silence that feels like peace. It was a little awkward at first. Sure. But it felt good to focus on Aiden and Lily without the noise. In the weeks leading up to the trip, late April 2024, I made an effort to keep everything normal. We hung out, did our usual routines. Grabbed burgers. Went to Maple Ridge Park. Movie nights. I wanted them to feel grounded, not caught in the crossfire. Finally, the day of the trip came. I dropped them off at Willow Creek Elementary that morning, and they were buzzing with excitement. Big smiles. Backpacks ready. Pure energy. Watching them run off to meet their friends, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Real satisfaction. This is what it's about. Not trying to appease people who don't respect your boundaries. Not breaking your back to be the nice guy. It's about showing up for your kids and, by example, teaching them it's okay to protect what's yours and say no when it matters. And then came the real curveball. The day after the trip, April 5th, 2024, Melissa called. I braced myself, expecting sarcasm, blame, some passive-aggressive jab. But she surprised me. She asked how the kids enjoyed the trip. I kept it short. They had a great time. I waited for the usual follow-up, the guilt, the critique. Instead, she said, Ryan and I didn't agree with how you handled it, but I respect that you stood up for yourself and your kids. I didn't expect that. Not at all. It wasn't an apology, but it felt like a rare moment of honesty. Like maybe, just maybe, Melissa was finally starting to understand that I wasn't trying to be difficult. I was just protecting my role as a dad. Since then, things have been pretty quiet. Her family backed off, and it's like we all reached some unspoken agreement. We might not see eye to eye, but we figured out how to stay in our lanes. And honestly, I think it's made me a better father. I'm no longer second-guessing every decision or worrying about how it might ripple through their household. I'm focused on Aiden and Lily, and that's what matters. This whole ordeal taught me something I wish I'd learned a long time ago. Setting boundaries isn't just about saying no to others. It's about saying yes to your own peace of mind. I've learned that it's not just okay to prioritize your own family. It's healthy. And if someone can't accept that, that's on them. Not me. Right now, things are good. The twins are happy. I'm in a better headspace. And all that extra baggage I didn't ask for is finally off my back. Even Melissa and Ryan seem to have accepted that I'm not going to budge. Sure, it's not perfect. Life never is. But I know now that I can stand my ground and make decisions for my kids without getting dragged into someone else's chaos. And just when I thought we'd finally turned a corner, she threw one last grenade. A few weeks after the dust had settled, around the end of April 2024, Melissa started talking to me about the twins' living situation at her house. At first, it just sounded like venting, normal parenting stuff. But then the conversation took a turn. She started hinting that I should do something about the space the kids have over there. And then she just said it. She wanted me to buy a house. Not for me. For them. She said it wasn't fair that the kids had one standard of living at my place in River Pines and something completely different at her house on Elm Street. That the contrast could hurt their self-esteem. That it might make them feel like they didn't measure up. At first, I genuinely thought she was kidding. But she was serious. Dead serious. She expected me to buy a second home so the twins could be more comfortable at her place, with her in it. I stayed calm and asked, "Melissa, how does that make any sense? You already have a house." She went on about how their place was too small for the size of their family, and how it was impacting the kids' mental well-being. She started throwing around terms like equal standards as if it was somehow my job to level out the results of her life choices. I told her, plain and simple, that it wasn't going to happen. That's when she threw every guilt trip she could muster. "Don't you want the kids to feel just as comfortable at my place as they do at yours? It's not fair that you're not willing to provide for their full living experience." She actually acted like I was heartless for not buying her family a new house. That's when I hit the wall. I said, "Melissa, listen. The kids are fine. They have everything they need when they're with you. If you feel like your house is too small, that's something you and Ryan need to work out. I'm not upgrading your lifestyle." She went quiet. Then came the jab. "Well, if the kids end up feeling like their real home is only with you, that's on you." I just shook my head. That conversation was over. I don't know how she managed to convince herself that was a reasonable request. But if anything, it made one thing crystal clear: there's no end to what some people will demand when they refuse to respect your boundaries. I love my kids. I want what's best for them. But that doesn't mean I'm going to bankroll someone else's life. I've drawn the line and I'm standing firm. No guilt. No backpedaling. No regrets.